Laura, just so you know, we can't see the image from the town.
Okay, please turn your microphones on and pull them forward when appropriate. I'd like to call the Planning Board and Zoning Commission of the Town of Niskayuna, the July 11th, 2022 meeting to order. Mr. Henry, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Khan,
Here. Stole your microphone.
Mr. McPartlin,
Here.
Mr. Darpino,
Here.
Ms. Shenfield,
Here.
Ms. Gold,
Present.
Ms. Strang,
Here.
Chairman Walsh.
Here. Thank you, Mr. Henry. Okay, we have the approval of the minutes from the June 13th, 2022 meeting up next. Can I have a motion for approval of the minutes?
So move.
Move for approval by Mr. D'Arpino. Do I have a second?
Second.
And second by Ms. Strang. And any changes or discussion on the minutes? I have a few things. I got a couple of typos and one suggestion. How's that? So I'll get started with that. So I'm trying to scroll through them now. On line 73, this is just a minor typo, page 2 of 6. Just where it says one item, I guess this was it. I said line 73. Oh, yep, I'm in the wrong one. 73, it says E discussions. That should be Roman numeral 8 discussion items to coincide with the agenda. It's a minor typo. And then there's a similar one on line 212. Same kind of thing, just that there was a change in the, let's see, 212, which is on the last page. That would be page 6 of 6. And instead of number 1 on adjournment, that should be a Roman numeral 11. Okay. And then for changes on, let's see, line 205. So that's on page 5 of 6, which is scroll up just a little bit. Line 205. It kind of runs together. It's talking about the GE project, and then all of a sudden it says, she asked if there would be comfortable calling for a tentative resolution for recommendation to town board, but that's a different subject. So I suggest on 205, we start a new paragraph and we add the words regarding the child care application for 1850 Union Street. Mr. Robinson asked, and then we can continue if they would be comfortable calling for a tentative resolution for recommendation to town board. So it was a different subject there. That makes sense, everybody? So it's just to clean that up a little bit, all right? So I'm going to move that we modify the minutes as suggested. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Second by Ms. Shenfield. Any further changes? I'm sorry, I should ask for further changes first. Is there any other further changes to the minutes? Okay. Seeing no further changes, all those in favor of approval of the minutes as modified signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none opposed, the minutes are modified and approved. All right. Next, we have a public hearing, and the public hearing is regarding 1850 Union Street. That's site plan application for Capital Kids Care after school and summer camp with an existing place of worship. Mr. Henry, would you please read the public notice?
Notice is hereby given that pursuant to the zoning ordinance of the town of Niskayuna and the applicable provisions of New York town law, a public hearing will be held by the Planning Board and Zoning Commission of the town of Niskayuna in the town board meeting room at 1 Niskayuna Circle on the 11th day of July 2022 at 7 p.m. to consider an application from Caitlin Brownell for a site plan and special use permit at 1850 Union Street relative to the following: an application to operate a child daycare center after school and summer camp within a place of worship in the basement level of the Emmanuel Evangelical Lutheran Church located at 1850 Union Street in the town of Niskayuna. The property is located within the R1 low-density residential zoning district. A copy of the application for the after-school and summer camp will be available for inspection at the planning department in the Niskayuna Town Office Building and at niskayuna.org/planning board under the News and Announcement tab and will be shown during the public hearing. If you wish to express an opinion regarding the public hearing, you may do so at the above mentioned time and place. If you cannot be present, you may request a virtual login to the meeting by emailing lrobertson@niskiuna.org or calling 518-386-4530. Or you may set forth your opinion in a letter, which will be made part of the permanent record. The Planning Board and Zoning Commission of the Town of Niskiuna will hear all persons interested during the aforementioned public hearing. By order of the Planning Board of the Town of Niskiuna, New York, Kevin A. Walsh, Chairman, Planning Board and Zoning Commission.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Henry. Just for public's information, this is a public hearing to make a recommendation for a special use permit to the town board. The town board will also be having a public hearing, so if you're not present tonight, you'll have an opportunity to speak at the town board when they have their public hearing. We also have a resolution prepared tonight because we don't expect any significant comments, so we expect to go ahead tonight unless we hear something otherwise from the public. Do we have the applicant here? Would you like to come to the microphone and just give us just a brief overview of the project, and then I'll open it up to the public to see if we have any comments?
Sure.
Great.
Hi, I'm Katie. I am the founder of Capital Kids Care along with my partner Kyle right over here. I get to do all the talking though.
Is that microphone on, Laura? Okay, I'm sorry.
Touch
Just,
something.
yeah, microphone doesn't. There we go. Might want
Am I just quiet?
Yeah, maybe you're just quiet.
Sorry, I've been at summer camp all day.
Yeah.
I'll use my camp voice.
There you go. Now we're talking.
Hello, is this better? Okay, so our camp and after school program is for school age children. So they come directly bused from any Niskiuna school. We do before program or before school program, which is great for our middle schoolers who go in later. We offer a 10-week summer program. I'm sorry, I'm like, whew, I've been in camp all day, I'm tired. Let's see. So our summer camp goes from 4-year-olds all the way up to 15. We have a counselor and training program for tweens, which is really exciting for them, leadership position. If you don't want to leave your 15-year-old at home, we'll take them. And then during the school year, we go up to 12. So in the summer, we're fully licensed under the Department of Health. In the school year, we use the Office of Children and Families to be fully licensed, which we're through. This is our last item to get our official licensing to start the program in the fall. Very exciting. During the school year, we also offer care on days off of school, half days, and vacation camps for like winter break, April break, etc. Anything else I should add?
No, the location is 1850 Union Street, which is the Emmanuel Evangelical, the Lutheran Church.
Emmanuel
Yeah,
Lutheran.
it's long.
Yep. And we operate in the basement. There's a nice keypad entry at the back of the building, which is excellent. Everyone loves that. A nice green grassy space out back. So we're
Okay.
very happy there.
Great. Well, thank you. We'll open the floor to the public. Anyone wishing to be heard regarding the public hearing regarding 1850 Union Street and the Capital Kids Care after school and summer camp program, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. We'll listen to what you have to say. Public hearing is open. Anyone? Laura, do you have anybody virtually or any letters or emails from residents at all?
I didn't receive any electronic communication.
Okay, no communications and no one to be heard here. Last call? Okay, so no one, so we'll close the public hearing for 1850 Union Street for the Capital Kids Care application. Thank you, everyone. Next is privilege of the floor. Anyone wishing to be heard regarding any planning and zoning matters in the town of Niskiuna, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. So privilege of the floor is open. Anyone in the audience for privilege of the floor? Okay, seeing no one here. How about, again, virtually, anybody, Laura, or any written comments for privilege of the floor tonight?
No, I checked. We received nothing for this meeting.
Okay, again, thank you. Okay, we're seeing no one for privilege of the floor. We'll close privilege of the floor. We have no unfinished business, so we'll move right to new business tonight. Under new business, we have 4 resolutions, a few resolutions and a recommendation. The first resolution being Resolution 2022-14, a resolution to make a recommendation to the town board on a special use permit for the operation of a child care center at the Emmanuel Evangelical Lutheran Church at 1850 Union Street. Resolution was posted to our website, but as always, I'm going to read any conditions or final information. So on this resolution, we have further resolved that the Planning Board and Zoning Commission hereby recommends that the town board grant a special use permit for a school-aged child care program at the Emmanuel Evangelical Lutheran Church at 1850 Union Street as shown in a 5-page documentation package stamped received June 8th, 2022, Planning Office, Niskiuna, New York, subject to final site plan approval. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution? resolutions approved by move for approval by Mr. Khan. Do I have a second?
Second.
And seconded by Ms. Gold. Any discussion at all? I guess the only thing I'd say is that we didn't hear anything from the public. This will move it forward to the town board. Again, they'll have their public hearing. Upon the town board issuing the special use permit, it'll come back to this board for final site plan. We'll have an opportunity to clean up anything any concerns that come forward.
A similar daycare was held in this building in the past.
Correct. Even, I think it was operating even 2 years ago, but unfortunately there was a year, there was at least a year between this application and them, so the special use permit expired.
But it's a known occupation for this building.
Yeah, it was operating there without complaint for probably a good 4 or 5 years.
And it does provide a service that's much in need.
Yep. Okay, any other comments? Mr. Henry, please call the roll.
Mr. Khan,
Aye.
Sorry.
Mr. McPartlin,
Aye.
Mr. Dorpino,
Aye.
Ms. Shenfield,
Aye.
Ms. Gold,
Aye.
Ms. Strang,
Aye.
Chairman Walsh.
Aye. The resolution is approved, and we'll make a positive recommendation to the town board, and we'll await their action before we come back for final site plan. So, thank you, and we'll be seeing you again. Okay. All right. Next up is a recommendation to ZBA regarding 2837 Aqueduct Road. It's a recommendation for the 66 apartment unit building containing 2,000 square feet of mixed-use commercial space. It requires an area variance for the height of the building. All right. And we have a denial letter from the planning office, of course, because of the required height variance. And basically, Niskayuna zoning code, section 22017A, height regulation states, no building or structure shall exceed a height of 35 feet above the average finished grade adjoining the building unless otherwise specified in this chapter. The finished grade of artificial berms or similar earthen structures created for insulation or other purposes adjacent to the building shall be disregarded in the determination of the average finished grade. As proposed, the 12-page drawing set entitled Overall Plan Phase 2 by Brett Steenberg and the 24-page drawing set entitled Exterior Perspective View from Aqueduct Road by HCP Architects show the proposed 66-unit senior living building as 41 foot high. Therefore, a 6-foot height variance is required. So tonight, we're going to make our recommendation to the ZBA. I know we have Mr. Pafunde. Would you please come to the microphone representing the applicant? And thank you for coming tonight. Before we make our recommendation, I just didn't know if, I'll open it up to the board if they have any questions, but I don't know if you have anything new that you'd like to report to the board.
Yeah, so from the last meeting, we did gain some answers that the board had. HVAC units were a question at the last board meeting. Those are contained within call it a bathtub within the roof line. So those are a false gaving roof line. And internal to that would be a bathtub-shaped rubber membrane roof structure that would contain the RTU units and hide them.
So just to be specific, with the current 6-foot additional variance that you're looking for and the depression, the bathtub depression in the roof line for the HVAC, we don't anticipate anyone will be able to see those units.
No.
Thank
Yep. And then the other item was a perspective drawing from the Alpos community across the river. Our architects are working on that, but we should have that to be able to surface to the board before meeting the ZBA for the ZBA meeting. So we'll keep working on that, and I'll surface that over when it becomes available.
Laura, the ZBA is when?
Well, they're not actually on the July meeting. They requested to be allowed to have the planning board recommendation before they do their appeal. So they'll be on the August meeting.
Okay.
Which is like August. It's really late in August because of the second round of early voting. So I'm just guessing it's like August 26th or 28th, something like that.
Okay, so we don't have to make a recommendation for that.
Well, they specifically delayed their application so that they could, to the ZBA so that they could get our planning board recommendation to be able to incorporate it into their appeal.
Our
Yeah.
attorney wanted it to be part of the documentation package.
Okay.
And then on the flip side, we had a little more time to put more of a package together, make sure we were properly prepared instead of rushing it.
Yeah, Mr. Laflamme, who was excused tonight, he and I did discuss it before, and Chairman Walsh was also in the conversation. So I think the main question we had was the HVAC units.
Yep.
And whether the height variance was sufficient for that. Would like to see the view from Al Plus, but I don't think that, at least from as far as I'm concerned, and I think Chris had agreed to that also, that's not something that, we feel would hold us up from making our recommendation tonight.
And then on progress with the site plan, we resubmitted to Army Corps of Engineers for what we feel is our final submission to them, addressing all of their concerns. And also submitting the stream mitigation package for the animal shelter. So that package has went in this afternoon, and we heard also, did the TDE comments come in, Laura and Clark?
Not yet.
Not yet. I know the TDE had reached out, and it sounds like those were very close to receiving first round of comments. So,
Actually, yeah, we might have them.
okay.
Let me double check that.
But once we'll have those, we can start addressing those and maybe be able to surface another plan revision to Laura and the board to review in regards to the TDE comments being addressed. So,
Yes, we do have those.
okay, great.
And just for my clarification, so the bathtub is inside of the roof. So no matter whether you're looking from Aqueduct or looking from the river, all you see is roof and, possibly, vent pipes and so on and so forth coming out. You won't, it isn't like the roof isn't cut out with a bathtub and then all the HVAC unit stuff sitting there. Is that?
That's correct. It's all self-contained.
All
From any cardinal direction of the building, you wouldn't be able to see any of the penetrations or the
I just want to
RTUs.
clarify for myself. Thank you. I
Yes.
appreciate that.
So just so I'm clear on this, the renderings that show the gable roofs,
Yep.
they're going to be inside the building, covered, correct?
Yes, the gabled roofs become essentially like a parapet structure.
Okay, because I don't think that's exactly what's shown here. What you're describing is what I would call false mansard, that would show something coming up, going down, and then a flat roof, correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's not what's shown in these elevations. And given the configuration of the dumbbell style roof structure, that's going to change aesthetically.
Yeah, and maybe we could jump on even I could have Ben come to the next meeting, or if you wanted to jump on a Teams call outside of this to talk with Ben, our architect. He seemed to think they did represent that because I've surfaced that question to him.
Okay.
There was always the question of how the roof lines came together at the barbell ends.
Mm-hmm.
And he did say they had to address that in the rendering, but it wasn't going to overall change a massive amount of the roof line. It doesn't change any additional height or anything. It was more so tying that barbell end back to the bathtub. The bathtub doesn't come around the barbell ends, if that makes sense. It's present on the long section of the building.
Okay, so I could see that, but at the bump out there where the re-entrant corner is, that's a full gable that goes across where the protruding end of the dumbbell is. To me, it would seem like where that full gable is, that's covering an entire rental unit. So there's not a fake roof behind that.
If not on the barbell ends, you're saying?
Correct.
Yes.
If Ben can put together a aerial roof plan
Yeah, absolutely.
and marry these perspectives together, I think that would be helpful, at least from my perspective. And then the ARB could take a look at it too, just to say, yeah, we prefer the gables. So
Okay.
we've gone through this. So
Yeah.
we want to keep the gables. What we don't
Yeah.
want to do is start chopping this thing up again into false mansards. That's not going to represent what this is closer to, because of the way the roof configuration is, just to get the mechanical units up there. Now, if some of those units can be contained in the attic space and you can use the dormers or something as ventilation, you may have already solved it. So I just want to make sure the board understands we're not going to deviate from where we are aesthetically currently with this roof configuration. And then on the long side, I did look at a plan that would make sense because you've got enough depth from from one edge of the building to the other that you could do. Yeah, correct. But it's basically the ends of the buildings where you've got the the valleys and everything coming back in, maybe it's an amalgamation of a couple different roof lines.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it would be helpful. They're
Mhm.
moving forward with like an overall structural design right now,
Okay.
just to kind of get closer to more zeroed in budget pricing. So that's an exercise that we can do, and I think it's going to fit right into the design development anyhow.
Okay.
And Mr. DiArpino, thanks for raising that, right? The key thing, with the recommendation from the planning board tonight, the risk, I think it's clear from our end, we really don't want any of the HVAC units to be visible. And so the risk you're running is that you're going to have to get that to fit within the 6-foot variance, because I don't think there's an option for asking for a second variance,
Correct.
right? So if the number was greater than 6 foot, and then we're going to wait until our next meeting and we can consider that, both Mr. Flum and I would at least be open in supporting a pathway that way.
Yes.
But if we want a resolution tonight on the 6-foot variance, then, you'd have to make it work that we don't see those units.
We feel confident that we can make it work with the variance that we're requesting right now.
Okay. Any other comments or questions for the applicant? All right. Hearing none, we'll move.
Chairman.
Yep.
The CAC noted that that it's very unlikely that any trees will be able to remain between the edge of pavement and the road. So there's really, according to the landscaping plan, there's really only like 5 trees that are screening this building from the road. So the CAC recommended that additional screenings be planted so that as you're driving down, at least the view, because this is very large and tall, that at least it would filter the view as you were driving along. So I would recommend considering that, because otherwise it's very, very tall. It's the tallest building on all of
Yeah.
Aqueduct Road, and it's going to have like no screening to the road.
Right, but we can consider that, again, as part of the approval process, independent of a recommendation tonight.
Yeah, you can, but like if 41 feet isn't a precedence that you really want to set, and you want to make sure that you're making sure that you're mitigating it in every way that you know how, I mean, I would recommend including it in a recommendation, because once a variance is granted, you still have all of the weight of the site plan approval, but it's definitely, I think, better to have as many things ironed out, ahead of a 41-foot variance.
Yeah, because I have questions then, how many trees, location, and that's kind of like gets into detail. So I don't mind stating, or not with the board's approval, of course, stating that we maybe look at mitigation plans by including additional plantings. But I think we're going to, need the applicant to take a look at where they would go, et cetera, and get some details on that. But
We're open to providing the plans from the CAC meeting. I was present there.
Okay.
We don't disagree
All right.
that they would be helpful.
So if you want to, incorporate that in the write-up to the ZBA that states that, we'll pursue that, but we require some additional information from the applicant and detailed details in order to actually institute it. Is that reasonable, Laura? Do it that way? Okay. All right. All right. So we got 3 questions asked, standard 3 questions. And the first question being, is there an effect on the comprehensive plan for the requested area variance? Mr. Khan?
So there is no effect on a comprehensive plan by this additional height variance.
Okay. So the recommendation by Mr. Khan is no effect. All those that agree there's no effect in the comprehensive plan signify by saying aye. Aye. Is anyone opposed?
Yes.
Leslie, can you pull your microphone a little in?
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
I think there is a small effect,
Any details, Ms. Gold?
just because it does set the precedent of the height. And that is inconsistent.
Yeah.
I think it's a minor effect,
Okay.
outweighed by other factors, but I do think there's an effect.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, we'd always said that the comprehensive plan, we knew any variance would be against the code, right?
Yeah.
Against the variance.
Well, the ordinances allow the ZBA and the applicant to go to the ZBA. So that's why I say no effect on the comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plan doesn't get into details about the height variance. It gets into details about the locations of structures that may have variances associated with them. But I don't see that in this case as being a problem personally.
Right.
So, but your point's valid. So the vote is 6-1. All those six board members say there's no effect on the comprehensive plan, and one board member says there is an effect on the comprehensive plan. So be it minor. Okay? All right. And the next question that we ask is the suitability of use for the area proposed. Mr. Khan?
It is suitable for the suitable use for the area proposed. Again, one of the bases that we use for this is a PUD, and I have a little bit less concern about precedent setting relative to the fact that this is a PUD. The options that we were weighing, we could get to the 35 feet, I'm sorry, with a less attractive looking roof structure, right? The flat roofs, as was proposed in one of the revisions, right? I think the planning board and the ARB believe that the current configuration of the roof, that's why it's important to keep it this way, right? Looks better for that area and for what is there in terms of the other buildings that were put in on the townhouse side and including the structure. And I think that's basically it.
Okay. How about anybody else on the board? Any other suggestions for suitability for use?
I agree that it's suitable. I think the residential character, even though it's apartments rather than single-family homes, is still very appropriate for the area. I can think of a lot of uses that would be very inappropriate, especially since we're up against the river. So I think it's a desirable use.
Okay. Anybody else? I agree with Mr. Khan. I had those in my notes also, same thing, but basically a part of a PUD within the R2 zoning district, with the, previous approvals allowing that to senior apartment building. So this is just, a variation, and I think a positive one versus a flat roof or some of the other renderings that were shown. So I agree with Mr. Khan on that. And I also agree that it allows for a better design. So it allows for architectural diversity in the design by allowing for the height variance, and that's what we've got in front of us tonight. I also had that, previously we had a 100-unit apartment proposal. I think it was 2-story, so it was quite a bit of square footage of real estate taken up as a result of that. So even though we still reduced it, or the applicant has reduced it from 100 to 66, there is an associated, which was mentioned also by the Conservation Advisory Council, of minimizing impacts on wetlands nearby because we're going three stories up. So I think that also indirectly supports the height variance. And also, along with the longer building with the 100 going to 66 and with the increased height, we're also minimizing impervious surface that way versus having a lower roof line and a wider building to accommodate the same number of apartments, even if it was 66. So I think there's less impervious surface, and so it's a better overall project as a result of consolidating the apartments into one building.
Right, I agree with those last two meaningful points you made, Chairman.
Yeah. And the other thing I thought, and we'll see, is there's a low impact on the residential character of the neighborhood. Just took a couple of rides by again. There is a residence, so there is some impact. There is one residence across the street. But I think along with adding the words that we'll try to at least put some trees along the front there, so at least it would deflect the view. You still see through the trees, of course, and still see the height, but that might be a positive thing for the residents, the one residence that looks like it's across the street from the proposed site. Right?
And I'll add one other thought. I think the height variance to allow the row house look is really a benefit because I think it fits in better than a very contemporary building would.
Yes.
And I think to get it down to not needing a variance, you'd probably wind up with a very contemporary looking building to get that number of units.
Yes.
Any other comments from the board or suggestions on suitability for use? Okay, we have a recommendation that it's suitable with the comments that were provided. All those that agree that it's suitable for your proposed signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so that's unanimous, 7-0, that it's suitable for the area proposed suitability of use. And the final question we ask is a recommendation to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Mr. Khan?
We recommend that the ZBA grant this height variance.
All right. Recommended that the ZBA grant. All those agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And again, that's unanimous, 7-0, that the recommendation that the ZBA grant the area variance. Okay, Mr. Pafunde, anything else?
No, thank you, folks, very much.
Well, we got you up there. How the rental's coming along? Everybody always wants to know.
Yeah, we just got to 60 units. So we had 25 folks show up for our open house this weekend, which was a pretty good turnout. And we received 2 applications of it as of Saturday. So expecting a couple more in. And now that landscaping's kind of commencing and things are getting cleaned up, we're getting a lot more folks.
This is for the existing buildings you're talking about.
They are, yes, correct. Yep. And that's pretty good, as phase 1 is really mostly CO'd. So 80 units, 60 signed leases are moving rather quickly, which is good.
Great.
It was a little ironic. I was thinking, Sharon Walsh, when you said just now the residential character of the neighborhood. It's this project that's actually making it a residential neighborhood.
Yep, that's part of it. Yep. And I was obviously thinking of the home on Aqueduct across from the site.
Yeah, I understand what you meant.
Yep.
I mean, this used to be a junkyard.
Yeah, a recycling center.
May stay a valuable resource.
All right. No other comments or questions for the applicant? All right, good luck with the ZBA, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
All right, have a good night. All right, move on the agenda. Let's see what we got next there. Okay, resolution 2022-15, a resolution for final subdivision and final average density development approval for Kelt's Farm subdivision at 2538 River Road. All right, and the resolution is posted online, of course. It's a little bit lengthy, but I'd like to read the conditions. Everybody bears with me. I think it's important. All right. And so this is for Kelt's Farm average density development. Resolved that the Planning Board and Zoning Commission does hereby grant final major subdivision approval for the average density development subdivision special use permit known as Kelt's Farm, with land dedicated to the town as open space at 2538 River Road, as shown in an 8-page drawing set entitled Engineering Plans for the Kelt's Farm Subdivision, March 2021, revised April 21, authored by Advanced Engineering and Surveying, PLLC, marked Revision 2, and dated 4/23/21, subject to the following conditions. 1, per Chapter 189, subdivision of the land of the Code of the Town of Niskuna, final subdivision approval is required after the proper installation of all improvements or a letter of credit is submitted to the town that covers the full cost of any remaining required improvements. Per Chapter 98, fees of the Code of the Town of Niskuna, final subdivision approval fees will be due upon receipt of the final subdivision application prior to the recording of the subdivision plat. 2, the developer shall be responsible for removing the Windsor Drive Road extension and replacing it with a multi-use path and small park. The Town of Niskuna Highway Department will put the wing on the new roadway section and review the stormwater system. The Windsor Drive Road has been removed and the multi-use path installed. Developer has submitted an escrow check for $4,000 to cover the creation of the small pocket park. Final approval of the Windsor Drive pocket park plan and gazebo location from Town of Niskuna Highway, Police, and Planning Department is required. 3, the developer has abandoned the existing sewer line across the property in place and installed a new trunk line alongside the bike path. 4, prior to recording the final subdivision plat, the street planting plan shall be submitted to and approved by the Niskuna Tree Council. Escrow has been provided for the street tree plantings. 5, prior to issuing a building permit, the new houses shall be referred to and reviewed by the Architectural Review Board. 6, in accordance with the Chapter 180 of the Soil Erosion and Sediment Control Ordinance of the Town of Niskuna, the applicant shall put in place soil erosion and sediment control measures sufficient to stabilize disturbed areas. These measures shall be satisfactory to the Superintendent of Water, Sewer, and Engineering and shall remain in place until such time as natural vegetation has been successfully established. 7, should the garage floor elevations for individual lots deviate by more than 6 inches from the elevations approved for construction by the Planning Board and Zoning Commission or the Building Department, then revised grading plans shall be submitted immediately to the town's engineering office for their review and approval. Depending on the impact to driveway slopes or drainage features such as swales and berms, the revised grading plan may need to extend into the subdivision-wide grading plan to ensure impacts to adjacent lots are accounted for. 8, wetland boundaries shall be recorded and shown on any plot plan of the of a building lot containing wetlands. Wetlands may not be disturbed, drained, or physically altered in any way without a permit from the Army Corps of Engineers and the town of Niskayuna. 9, additionally, the town of Niskayuna requires that no land be disturbed within 25-foot buffer from the boundary of the wetland unless prior written approvals are granted by the town planning department. A split rail fence must be installed at said 25-foot buffer for each affected lot prior to issuance of a final certificate of occupancy. 10, the limits of clearing on this subdivision shall be strictly adhered to during construction. To the maximum extent practicable, the applicant shall retain as many of the site's healthy trees and native vegetation as possible. 11, the water and sewer trunk fees to the town of $24,000 for sewer, that's 24 units times $1,000 each, and $24,000 for water, that's 24 units times $1,000 each, have been paid. 12, the applicant shall notify and secure final approvals from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation and the Schenectady County Department of Health for the water and sewer systems. 13, the applicant shall close out the Schenectady County permit for the crosswalk and push button to the satisfaction of the town and county engineering departments. 14, the applicant has paid the remaining parkland fee to the town, a sum of $12,000. And 15, the applicant has provided deeds and easements to the town attorney for the review and approval. All conveyances shall be approved by the town attorney and filed in the Schenectady County Recorder's Office at the applicant's expense. 16, the applicant shall work with the planning department to correct minor typographical errors on the plat prior to its final recording. And finally, 17, planning board approval of the subdivision sign is not included in this resolution. The applicant shall submit a building permit for the subdivision sign and shall be brought to the planning board at the July 25th, 22 meeting for their discussion and review. Mr. Diopino and Mr. McPartlin, we have a motion for the resolution.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Move for adoption by Mr. Diopino.
Second.
And seconded by Mr. McPartlin. Does that sound reasonable?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. There's a little bit of a delay there, sorry. All right, so we have a motion and a second, and we have the applicant here. I don't know if you want to come up, Joel, for some discussion.
Joel, Design Properties.
Any comments regarding the resolution or conditions, Mr. Design?
No, there's just a few details that I've been working out with the planning department.
Okay.
Concerning, the concrete markers. You know, in the approval, the plan, we didn't show concrete markers. The town code specified rods and pins, you know, or caps, rods and caps. So there's 13 of them at every tangent, you know, and change in direction on the roadway. So there's 13 of them. And I sent you Advanced Engineering's quote for those.
Yep, I received that.
And I also sent you the quote from HMA for the excavation of any silt, you know, from the retention ponds. And I'm getting the letter of credit for the final blacktop, you know, from First National Bank, but they need the wording that you like included in the bond. And I think that's about it. Then you say that this goes to the town board on the 26th.
Yeah, this month. Mhm.
Okay.
That's for
And then,
roads and utilities.
We're accepting the
acceptance.
roads and
Yeah.
utilities. Yep,
then I can get the remaining permits to start building.
correct.
Okay.
Okay,
And
Alright.
that's contingent on me getting everything I need to put it on for town board by Thursday of next week. I think it's 21st, maybe.
Okay.
all right. One thing that came up and I'd like to talk about, and I haven't had a chance to talk to Mr. Diopino or Mr. McPartlin. I got a call from Laura just prior to the meeting. And I think one of the residents adjacent to where the proposal, the gazebo, may have stopped in and saw you, Laura, and there was some concern about the
Yeah.
location of the gazebo. I know that the resolution allows the town to have the final okay with the okay
Sure.
of the police and, police and highway, I believe. It's written right in this condition number 2. Town Niskayuna Highway Department, let's see.
Well, it's
Yeah,
going to
anyway.
take 4 to 6 weeks to build the gazebo. We had a special order it.
So
So
that,
it's vinyl, it's open, and it has like seating, vinyl seating inside, and then we're going to have a bulletin board with the
Okay.
history of Kelt's
So
Farm,
that, it has been ordered already and.
Yes.
yeah, So.
like 2 weeks ago.
Okay, so we're past the point of any changes that it's on its way.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So I was talking to Laura and one of, just, it's something we need to talk about tonight. So if there's a concern that the town has with either the location because of safety, potential vandalism, people gathering, which, might create noise or create a nuisance for the neighbors, I just want to get the board's viewpoint. The resolution allows the town to make a decision.
Yep.
The town might make the decision that the area that is suggested may not be appropriate. Maybe it's close, maybe it's only a few feet one way or another, but maybe it's inappropriate.
Well, my opinion on that is that the stub was a former road, so that's very intrusive. Okay, now the neighbors have 60 feet of green buffer,
Yep.
additional green buffer from previously, okay? And if we met at the site and we spotted the location for a gazebo, and it's marked with a cone, for all the other members to see the location. But it's closer to the path. We're going to put a stone path from the gazebo to the bike path, right? If we move it, originally when we were talking about it, we were having it on the Kelt's property and not on the stub road. But if you think about that, that's going to be in the new neighbor's backyard. So when I built that duplex on the corner, the bike path and Kelt's Farm Road, if we put the gazebo there, then it's in that new neighbor's backyard. It's actually going to be closer to that neighbor than the existing neighbor. And you got to keep in mind that the existing neighbor, like I said, there was a road there before, now there's 60 feet of green
Yeah,
buffer.
I understand that.
I'm in the tree planting plan. We're putting in 2 street trees at the end of Windsor. And I offered up to Laura, I think today or yesterday that we could put in a split rail fence to delineate, that property boundary between that existing neighbor and the town land.
Laura, was it a safety concern or a privacy concern?
Yeah, it was a privacy concern. And they're not necessarily opposed to the gazebo, although they did remember it being on the other side, as long as it's small. But they were concerned that it might attract people kind of like gathering in it. And I think that they just wanted the planning board to know that they had a concern with the gazebo, but they did feel like it could be mitigated with if there was a couple evergreen trees or something between their property. I did bring up the split rail fence. They did not want a split rail fence.
Well, if you look at like Overall Park, we still have to install it, but to delineate the parkland from the private residences, we agreed to put in a split rail fence,
Yeah, it's
So-
a good way to delineate. And I did mention the split
what's
rail
the
fence.
difference now? I mean,
Their preference was just the natural vegetation and not the split rail to delineate their property.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it makes their property seem a little larger because there is no split rail, so they can encroach a little bit, I guess, without any problems. Because it's,
I mean, yes.
That's already happening.
So anyway, I just want to bring that up to the board. Any thoughts on that at all?
So
I really don't want to see it moved onto the Kelt's Farm behind
I understand
the
that.
new houses.
but
I
why
like-
are you opposed to that?
Because it's going to be like that duplex,
Mhm.
Dave, if you look at the plot plan, okay?
Yeah.
That's,
I went there
that
the other day.
gazebo
and
is
looked.
essentially going to be in their backyard.
Disagree. So if
Well,
you
why don't we
place
measure it and we'll compare it to the existing house then.
Okay.
I say it's closer.
But if you just put it over the property line at the bend of the curve, there's a couple benefits to it. One is which it won't be next to the house in Briarwood. There's a decent amount of vegetation behind the duplex, and that's a pretty decent distance.
Yep.
You also get the view of the pond from that bend. So I don't think it's that close to the duplex.
Okay, if we crowd it right into the woods area, I agree that that's not a bad location.
Right. Yeah, just to the edge of the tree line, the established tree line that's there.
Yeah.
You get a glimpse of the pond, which I think is a better view. You can see the park, and that would keep, if there is a collection of people that stop on the bike path, they're not going to spill onto the property. Right now, there's just nothing keeping anybody from
But
going.
then the police had the concern about kids
Yeah.
congregating in it. So now you're gonna have kids that
Okay, it's
the
visible.
police
Yeah,
can't
it's
see,
visibility, yeah.
Yeah.
the police can't see from the end of Windsor, into that gazebo probably because of the woods.
Yeah, so David, I agree with you. That's the perfect spot to put it.
Mhm.
Like I walked it multiple times and you can tuck it right in on that bend,
Mhm.
right into the trees. It would make sense because then you could put the sign inside it. You would be sort of surrounded by nature when you
Right.
were enjoying the gazebo rather than like in a yard that was attached to somebody else's
Yeah.
yard.
It's not a bad spot. I
It's
agree.
not a bad
Mhm.
spot there, but the police work. I have to check that with the police because they were concerned about it.
Okay.
Okay.
My personal opinion is I think it's still visible from Windsor Drive and the turn on Briarwood. And if there's a concern with a large gathering of teens, guess what? They're not quiet. So,
Yeah.
so the police are going to have an easy way to figure that out. I think it seems to be aesthetically the better location. This is just my opinion on where it could
No,
be.
I agree now. If we-
And
if we
I
tuck
think
in,
it
if
would
we
it
tuck
would
it in,
mitigate
that's
with
not
the
a bad
neighbor.
spot.
The neighbor would have a glimpse of it, but it wouldn't be there. But it is going to be a congregating spot, hopefully, for
That-
people that are using
That
the bike
spot's
path
kind of
and not
spongy
late
right
at night.
now, so I'm gonna have to bring in some fill to stabilize it,
Right.
but that's a good spot.
Okay, so that's,
So you got 4 weeks to decide.
well,
Mhm.
the way the resolution's written, I just want to point out,
Right.
is that we're given the authority, this board is giving you authority to the police, basically the planning department, the highway and police to make the final decision.
Right.
Because of trying to balance all the needs of each organization. So,
Just tell us where.
yeah,
That's all.
so and that we would leave
I
with.
have a concern about the gazebo as well, just its functional use with the screens.
Oh, there's no
Oh,
screens, Pat.
Okay,
We just
All right,
sent you
good.
that picture, but there's no screens and no door. It's open.
oh,
and-
great.
And there's gonna be vinyl seating around the periphery
Oh.
inside. If you
Awesome.
guys ever went to Hoffman's Car Wash?
Yes.
It's
Oh,
the
perfect.
same gazebo where you're sitting in at Hoffman's Car Wash.
Awesome.
How
Okay.
large is it?
I like that.
No, it's same size, 10 foot.
That's not big.
No, but we offered up to 12, but Laura said that 12 is too big. We don't want to encourage
Right.
Like
teens
events.
using it as a dance hall or whatever, or congregating.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I mean, it's meant to be a stopping place in a storm, a place where you can read the sign for Kelt's Farm, like a place where you can just sit and listen to the birds. Hopefully, we can get some flowers to grow around it, but it isn't meant to be like a rentable pavilion or anything.
No hosting birthday parties.
No
No.
birthday parties.
You got a big one out front here.
Bladnick Park is perfectly fine for
Okay.
that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so we have the condition in there again, that the location, Town of Niskayuna Highway, Police, and Planning Departments required. They can get Dave's input and Mr. McPartland as co-project leads on the final location, but Laura would have the lead of coordinating any meetings and getting the input from the different organizations. That's the condition that we have, and if everybody's okay with that, we'll just continue to move forward and let that work itself out, because I'm okay either way, personally, whatever works out.
And just one other thing too, while we got Clark on the phone too, with the ARB, they had a concern that the plans that we showed them for the ranch were kind of bland. But we are going to put a stone face on the ranch, similar to the white model that we sent you, Clark.
Okay, great. I'll share that with the ARB.
Okay,
We're probably going to use that dark gray color, but
all right, so we have a motion and a second for approval for the resolution. Looks like we have no changes to any of the conditions. Is there anything else, Laura? Are you okay?
Yeah, no, I'm pretty good. I'm David and Patrick. If I can get the chief of police and the highway superintendent together, I'll send you the times
Early in the morning.
early. That's what they like to do too.
I have
Perfect.
one more
Yeah, just-
question.
Sure, go ahead, Ms. Gold.
Would the fire department want to comment on the location?
Yeah, I can ask the fire department to come too.
I just want to say in closing too, before you guys vote, that I don't know what I'm going to do after 2.5 years,
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
You're not going to come?
Hang out in the gazebo once you figure out where it's going.
Make sure kids don't gather there.
You're probably tired of seeing me.
There is a question I have, but I can wait until after the vote for this.
Okay. or you can just ask if you'd like.
Well, okay, so when you're actually gonna, so I only have come to appreciate this since I've been biking a lot more now between the bike path to Stewart's. I get
Yep.
balance between the ice cream calories and the biking calories.
That's a good thing.
When you put the driveways in, that's gonna cut across the bike path.
Right.
So on Windsor right now, where that occurs, there's like there's definitely a divot in the road.
Yep.
In the bike path, and it's all filled in with grass, and it's pretty annoying to bike up.
Yeah.
Is the same thing gonna happen on your
No,
bike
because
path?
what we'll do is we didn't put the final coat on the bike path yet.
Okay,
Okay, we're going to do that after
After the
all
driveway.
construction because you're driving heavy equipment across the driveways, and it's gonna
Yep.
it's gonna dent the bike path,
okay,
And if you see now, I've marked out where all the driveways are, so we're going to leave stone there, and we're in the process of filling in all the topsoil and the seeding. So we'll have that strip of grass seeded this season or shortly. So
so we shouldn't get that same phenomena that's
No.
happening on the bike path.
No.
It's just, not, I've done it a few times, and it's terrible.
we had a better contractor too.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant before we call roll? Okay, Mr. Henry?
Mr. Khan,
Aye.
Mr. McPartlin,
Aye.
Mr. Darpino,
Aye.
Ms. Shenfield,
Aye.
Ms. Gold,
Aye.
Ms. Strang,
Aye.
Chairman Walsh.
Aye. Motion's carried. Resolution's approved. Congratulations, Joe.
Thank you, everybody.
I think it'll be a good looking site.
It is.
It looks nice and clean and
All right. Thanks, everybody.
important. Thank you very much.
Bye now.
Don't forget to file your building permit for your sign.
Laura will remind you if you don't. All right. Thank you, everybody. Let's see, last resolution for tonight is Resolution 2022-16, a resolution for site plan approval for the construction of a new 16,000 square foot building at GE Global Research. I think we have a couple recusals tonight regarding this.
Yes, so I'll be recusing Chairman Walsh. Thank you.
And I'm also recusing.
Okay, so we still have enough to quorum for a vote. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, so we should be all set. So we'll move forward, and let me just take a look at the conditions again, if you don't mind. Appreciate it. Okay, further resolved that this planning board and zoning commission finds that the site plan application referenced above meets the requirements of the zoning code and hereby approves this site plan with the following conditions. 1, the aesthetics of the building, including windows and exterior finishes, were an important part of the project review to mitigate the height and bulk of the building. Therefore, prior to issuance of a building permit for the final building design, shall be reviewed and approved by the Niskuna Architectural Review Board. 2, screening of the building to River Road Homes and to the Mohawk Hudson Bike Trail was an important part of the project review to mitigate the view and overall height impacts of the building. Therefore, prior to issuance of building permit, the final tree planting screening plan shall be reviewed and approved by the Tree Council, and a final building landscaping plan shall be submitted for review and approval prior to final certificate of occupancy of the building. 3, prior to site disturbance, the applicant shall participate in a pre-construction meeting with the town of Niskuna and shall address any concerns raised by the town or the town designated engineer. 4, prior to the pre-construction meeting, any engineering and drainage concerns will be addressed to the satisfaction of the town superintendent of water, sewer, and engineering, including review and approval of a SWIP. 5, prior to the pre-construction meeting, any questions or concerns raised by the town designated engineer will be addressed by the applicant in a formal letter to the town. 6, prior to site disturbance, the plan shall be modified to reflect agreed-upon decisions of the pre-construction meeting, if any, and distributed as required to the town. Final site plan shall be submitted to the town labeled for construction. And finally, number 7, in accordance with Chapter 180 of the Soil Erosion and Sediment Control Ordinance of the town of Niskuna, the applicant shall put in place soil erosion and sediment control measures sufficient to stabilize disturbed areas. These measures shall be satisfactory to the superintendent of water, sewer, and engineering and shall remain in place until such time as natural vegetation has been successfully established. Mr. DiArpino, do I have a motion?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Resolutions moved for adoption by Mr. DiArpino. Do I have a second?
Second.
And a second by Ms. Strang. And discussion, I see we have Mr. Whalen representing GE Global online. We have any questions or comments for him? And if not, Mr. Whalen, do you have anything for us to add?
Nothing to add. You've been very
Did
helpful.
we have a in-house review of the SWIP?
We're not able to do an in-house review with SWIP. We just don't have the technical ability to do that. So we did reach out to 3 different firms for a quote for a TDE on this project. We will need one. We didn't realize that the building disturbance would be over an acre until we finally got the site plan, but it will need a SWIP.
And that's covered in the conditions, of course. You okay with the resolution, Mr. Whalen? Any comments or concerns from you?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the board? Okay, hearing none, Mr. Henry, please call the roll.
Mr. Khan.
I've recused
Oh,
myself
I'm
from the
sorry.
vote.
Yep. Mr. McPartlin. Mr. McPartlin.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Did we, I haven't missed any meetings, and this is the first that we've had a chance to review the revised plans.
So as far as the footprint of the building goes, it was always just kind of a sketched box on an aerial. And this is the first time that you're seeing like a true rendering of the building with the contouring. That is the case. It was the only outstanding item, I think, from all what we had worked through. We were still just waiting for the site plan.
But we can take a pause, and if you want to pull it up,
Yep,
we
I
can
can
do
pull it
that.
Mhm.
Thank you.
I don't want to review it. I just want to know, I guess, that it would not be uncommon for this board to defer something like a TDE review of a SWIP to a condition in the resolution.
Yeah, that's not uncommon. A lot of times an applicant won't even complete a SWIP until a final approval just because it costs so much to change things. And so if a planning board's reviewing where the location of the building is, like if you were to turn the building, that completely changes the SWIP. So I can think of Eastern and 1769 Union Street and a lot of these sort of bigger buildings. We may have an early rendition of a SWIP or a general idea, but we don't typically have the final SWIP until after planning board site plan approval.
Okay. Sorry, I don't mean to delay here. So,
No,
I
that's
guess
very important. Chairman Walsh had the same question for us.
No, thank you, Mr. Partland. No, it's okay. And we appreciate you looking hard at this stuff.
yes, so my vote on adopting the resolution is aye.
Mr. Darpino.
Aye.
Ms. Shenfield.
I'm recusing myself from this vote.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Gold.
Aye.
Ms. Strang.
Yeah, before I vote, Laura, can you tell me who pays for the TDE? You said there was quotes.
Yes, the developer does.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right. My vote is aye.
Chairman Walsh.
Aye. Motion carries. The resolution's passed with a 5-0 vote. Okay. Congratulations, Mr. Whalen. We look forward to, closing out the conditions and the SWIP, of course, and participation with the Tree Council and the Architectural Review Board to finalize the plans.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
One question, do you expect to start construction before the end of the year?
That is the hope. Right now, we are having some issues with lead time for the actual building itself, but the hope is to start construction this year.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, have a good evening. All right, so we're all done with new business tonight. We'll move on to discussion items. We have a couple of new projects tonight. First being 1747 Union Street. That's a site plan application for a 492 square foot addition to an existing 1455 square foot gasoline service station. That's Pit Stop, I believe is right. We have a representative of the applicant. It's the first time the board saw this, sir. So if you could introduce yourself and give us an overview of the project, we'd appreciate it.
No problem. My name is Dan Kaufman. I'm with Couple Court Engineering, and what my client is proposing is, well, that's the existing floor plan. Okay, that's the proposed floor plan. So that shows right now we want to do is add another 12 feet by 41 feet onto the east side of the building, and so that would allow the cooler to get to go put in the back and allow to have more room to sell items for the local community. The items are still going to be pretty much standard type of convenience store items. I think there's also a site plan, if you can shift over to it, right there. So right there, and so on the east side of the building, that's where we're going to add the 12 by 41 feet. And then we were also showing that the traffic will still go around the building from that entrance. And then so that traffic can go out through there. I do think there was some discussions with some of the board about parking. When you can ask questions, of course, all questions are accepted. It's going to, we're looking to basically improve the building and just do, and this is to improve the overall appearance of the convenience store and gas station itself.
Okay. All right, thank you, sir. And I'm just, we all have all the information that's being shown up on the screen also. I'm just trying to get to it on my computer here.
No problem.
I do have a couple of questions. First one may be for either planning office or for legal. Laura, the zoning is this neighborhood commercial?
That's my understanding. It's CN.
Yeah, we'll double check, but that's probably right.
Okay, and so it's it's obvious from the application that we have a gas station there with possibly some convenience items, but it looks like an expansion of convenience items.
Yes.
And we do have other Stewart's locations in the town. So is this considered a gas or a convenience store or both?
So Clark was very conservative in how he calculated it. He calculated it as both. I would probably just calculate it as a gas station, but the conservative way would be to calculate it as both.
Yeah, since the applicant just stated, it's convenience items and there's not service bays or.
Yeah, originally when this was first built in the 70s, it did have service space and no convenience.
Right.
And over time, the business changed and they took away the service space and changed it into convenience store.
Yep.
I don't know when those things were done over the last.
And that's exactly where I'm going with my thought process here. Is it listed as a service station in neighborhood commercial? And if it's going to convenience, is this an opportunity to straighten out the site approval? Whether it should be, does it require a special use permit if it was a convenience store? I guess this is the question.
So any use in the CN zone, if it's a new use, requires a special use permit, but I don't think so because, I can double check the code on that for you, but I think that a gas station, I'll have to look at the definitions,
Yeah.
but I think that most gas stations have convenience
Yeah.
element to
And
them.
again, I support the proposal. So just so you understand, I'm just thinking that this might just be an opportunity to make it right, as we go through this process. In order to make it right, if it was a special permitted use, we would have to have a public hearing and then it would go to town board, but then it would be a clean site if that's the right thing to do. So I guess I'd look to Laura and Ms. Finnan to, come through that. What's the right way to approach it, since it is, an expansion of the convenience, you stated that, and I'm okay with that, but.
No other way to me to state it.
Yeah, so there's an opportunity here, I guess, if we need to make it right.
The agenda statement indicates that a gasoline service station is a special principal use in the CN district, and it is therefore an allowable use after the approval of a special use permit. So I'm not sure if that was already looked into.
For a service station, I'm more concerned with the convenience store aspect of it, like a Stewart's. How do we treat a Stewart's?
But I guess my thoughts are that it's a gasoline service station, so regardless, it might have a convenience component of it, but there's no doubt that it's gasoline service. So if what's in the agenda statement is correct, it would indicate that it would need a special use.
Yeah, I can look into the previous approvals, but I think we treat Stewart's as gas stations. but I can double check.
Yeah, I mean, it's just an open item, just tonight you're introducing the project.
Yes.
Like I said, I support it, I think we
Thank
can
you.
get through it. And if we have an opportunity or if we need to do something in addition to make it, follow the ordinance, and we'll take direction from you and from the planning office to make sure we handle it appropriately, okay? And get an opportunity, I know I caught you off guard with that, we'll get an opportunity to take a look at that, all right? And otherwise, the only other comments I had was looking at the site plan. I don't know, Laura, if you can pull that up, for the new site, which includes the parking. If you take a look, I think, when Clark calculated the parking, he used the 225, and I guess is that convenience store numbers, Clark? Or is that gas station, or are they the same?
No, that's the convenience store numbers. The gas station, a gasoline service station, I believe requires 3 parking places per service bay, which in this case, it has no service bays, plus 1 space for each employee. So the parking requirement of a gasoline service station that's performing service on the vehicle is quite low. That's why we put both of them in there.
No.
If you look at it more as a convenience store, it's per the square footage of the building, which is 1 space per 225 feet, I believe.
Correct, and I agree with Laura and you, and that's more conservative, and it's like, since it is moving toward a convenience store, if we can satisfy the parking requirements for the convenience store, then we got the best of both worlds there, right? So, yeah, so your analysis comes up with 9 parking spaces, and I mentioned this to Clark on the phone today. The only thing that's I think is short here is that the requirements for the convenience store requires the 225 plus 1 spot for each employee. So you assume you have 1 person working the counter, it would actually be 10 parking spaces.
Oh, okay, so we have.
If we can
There
finagle.
was gonna be no change in employees.
Right,
So you only have 1 employee usually on.
I understand.
Staff.
But that would come out to 10 parking spaces.
Okay, so we would have to provide
Yeah.
10 spaces then.
So we should take a look to see if it's possible, of course,
It's gonna be tight. I mean, there is room along the big back curb, over here along the north property line. Those spaces have not been, striped before, but there is room along there to add some more spaces. So
Right.
we could add more spaces along there.
Now, those spaces, I believe there was some signage. I don't know if it's still there. I meant to ride by today and I forgot to. There was a shared parking for Pizza Bueno, because it was a concern years ago when they went to.
There was somebody, I don't know, that place is still,
It's still in business.
still there. So they also have some kind of.
If you have something to add, you have to come up to the microphone, please, and state your name for the record, and we'll gladly listen to what you have to say and introduce yourself.
I'm Salman, and I'm the owner of the property. So there is no shared parking over there. It just she park it as a courtesy. So it's just like,
Okay.
and there's a parking spot. It just we let her to park there.
Right, because I remember it was a condition of the approval for her to have indoor dining was.
So it's just for me. I'm a new owner. I don't know what they are doing
Yeah.
previously, but it's just a courtesy to.
So my view is that you could use those spaces to get your 10. And if you still have an agreement to allow them to park there if they need a spot, and it's, informally or formally shared parking, and then everybody wins still,
Yeah.
So that would be an option, is to just show those additional spots along the back.
Okay.
All right. Unless the board is concerned with that, of course,
No, I think parking wise, the only spot that concerns me is number 5 on the
Number 5.
curve.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was before shown as a possibility. I mean, I would agree. I prefer not to have one there. If I can fit all of them along the back wall, I'm going to look to do that along the back curb.
Yeah, that's one of the comments usually get, because it could impact site, pulling out, traffic backing up in that intersection there, which gets quite a bit of use. So I agree with Mr. DiArpino on that. So the other item too regarding parking is parking spot number 7 is your handicap spot shown on here. There's no rear entrance to the building, is that correct? It's going to be through the front door?
There's also a door. There's also, if you look on the proposed floor plan, there's also going to be a door.
Oh, there's going to be an entranceway in the back also?
Well, no, right along here, we're looking to have a entrance door along the east side.
Right, I'm looking at it right now.
So we could look into putting the parking space, the handicap as close as possible.
Yeah,
to that
exactly. That's my comment. It seems like it was, if it was only at the front door, it would seem like it's parking spot number, was it 7 or, let me pull it up.
Yes, as you can see,
Yeah.
you're looking to have a
Parking spot
a
number 4,
door
yep.
right here
Yeah.
also.
Yep. So,
So
yeah,
that-
you want to get it as close, the handicap spot as
Yeah.
close as possible to the
Okay.
door. All right.
Do we still need to have do we need to have a 5-foot clearance area
That's
before exiting from the parking?
it's whatever the code requires, Laura. I guess if it's a handicap, it would require being a van accessibility, right?
I can ask the building inspectors that. I mean, you're allowed different configurations. If they're all like parallel, then it needs that. I don't know how it is if there's like the
actually-
way this is, like they're sort of like drive-in. I'm
Yeah.
not really sure.
So Laura, we'll get some information on that.
Okay,
I don't know the correct answer, and I don't want
No,
to.
yeah, I mean, those can be
Yeah.
provided to us before the next meeting. It'd be great.
Yep. Okay, let's see what else I had. And then I think we've had the comment come up, the propane. You're going to continue selling propane at that location. We've required the other stores or vendors to have bollards, safety bollards in front of propane storage. And that's not shown on the drawing.
Right, that's, yeah, the owner is okay with providing those safety bollards.
And if it's if there's a better spot to put it, or a better location, we're open on that also, whether it's around back or on the side, if there's a door, entrance door on the side, if it fits better over there with the bollards, consider relocating it to a more appropriate spot.
Okay.
All right.
We can discuss, we're, that's still under our discussion a little
Yep.
bit.
So those were the comments I had, and I agree with David about number 5. That kind of jumped out at me also, but I thought we were tight on parking spaces. But if we can utilize those spaces along the back, whether or not they're shared, if they're there, if somebody needs it, somebody jumps in it, right? If that all works out and we come through the handicap space issue, those were my comments. Any other thoughts from members of the board?
I really, this is such a tremendously busy intersection right here. And at certain hours of the day, I'm sure you're aware, can be very difficult to get out onto Union Street. And thank goodness for that middle median, because that would be was a real problem for many, many years that I remember. I would really like to see, and I realize this is this is our first blush at the project, but I would really like to see lots of different angles, because there was a time not too terribly long ago that aesthetically it wasn't the best looking area. So it would be really nice to see, maybe if we could enhance some of the landscaping would be really nice. And if we could just see the different angles of, what we'll see coming to and from past. And I think it's a great opportunity to really make it look like a much nicer property as well.
That can be, we can add some more renderings to the plans.
Yeah.
I'm a
and
real
to-
visual person. I really would like to see what it's going to look like.
Okay.
And of course, you want low landscaping, low. Obviously, you don't want to block the view by putting some trees there to make it look pretty, and then you can't see, right? So,
You will be able to see it with trees.
yeah.
You will. You
Yeah.
can definitely put trees there and it would
Can
be
you?
okay.
Yeah, I have to drive by again and take a look. How about other comments from the board?
Will this need any variances?
We'll double check if he can fit the parking. I don't think so, but like to Chairman Walsh's point, we'll just double check and make sure that it's covered under its existing use. But CN zones are weird. Like you can expand it by 30%, there's a lot of particular rules in the CN zone.
So what is the magic number for parking? 10?
My view, it's 10. If you go by the
Okay.
convenience store, it's 9. Comes to 8.65, which you round up to 9 because it's not 0.6 of a car, and then one spot for the employee, which would make it 10. Yeah. Now, I think we still would have waiver capability if we could only come up with 9 and we feel it's appropriate. We could take a look at that, but we should at least try to see if we can get the 10.
Yeah, I can look into that, definitely.
Yeah, there's a lot of spots.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you can get 4 spots on the back, on the north end. And I think the plan is, maybe the site plan isn't correct, because as you go in towards the bank, I don't think that curb cut's that wide. I thought it went further towards the corner of the building. Maybe I'm wrong. But I think if you you might have the opportunity where spot number 4 is to put another one next to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to make sure there's enough room for traffic to go around the building.
Right.
And
Yeah,
anything.
it's sort of, the side is sort of cut off, but I know the curb cut is further back to the bank going towards the north.
Right. I just want to make sure there's enough turning.
Right.
So people can turn still,
Right.
so the trucks can still,
Mhm.
any trucks that are bringing in any soft drinks or anything that can still pull in there easily.
How does the fuel delivery truck pull in right now? It's coming from the other side of the road. I don't know the road. So it comes down Van Antwerp?
Van Antwerp?
Yes,
It enters the site from Van Antwerp
Yes.
and then exits probably on Union Street.
yes. Your filling location is all on the north side of the road. Yes.
Okay. So any other thoughts or comments, concerns with this project?
Yeah, I'd like to echo Ms. Strang's concerns just regarding traffic circulation at the intersection of Van Antwerp and Union Street. And, you know, pedestrian safety, I think, is a little bit of a concern for me too, in that same vein. And, you know, when you're looking at the number of points of ingress and egress, I think if Stewart's can get by with 2, I don't think we need 4. So I'd like to see one of them closed up, perhaps the one that's on Van Antwerp nearest the intersection.
Okay.
And that could give you more parking.
Yes, that would.
Additionally, I do have concerns about the expansion of a use like this, especially given that it feels very similar to me to Harry's mobile station application. I know he was pursuing an expansion for not for convenience store purposes, but on terms of percentage expansion and just you know, what my question, I guess, would be, what need is this expansion meeting? And you know, I wonder, I have an open question to myself as to, I guess, what's the goal in terms of serving the community with added convenience store items? I also wanted to just refresh my memory. It's been a while since I've been in this retail outlet. Is the cooler a walk-in cooler?
No, it is not a walk-in cooler.
No, it is.
Okay. What is stored in the cooler?
It is a walk-in cooler.
Oops. So you really have to talk into
Yeah,
the
you get
microphone.
to-
Otherwise, he can't hear you.
Yes, it is a walk-in cooler.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So, you know, there aren't many convenience stores of this type that have walk-in coolers. So I just want to point that out.
I've seen quite a few of them.
In Niskayuna?
Not in this, I don't know if Niskayuna if there's any, but there's a lot
I'm
of.
talking about
A lot of the
Niskayuna.
speedways and similar stations have large walk-in
A
coolers.
lot of gas stations,
Yeah.
not a couple.
Yeah, no, I know it's a trend, and I know beer sales are great. But
It's
the-
not
I
about
think
just
this-
a beer sale. It's just we don't even
this
have
is a
any
bit of
storage and all
this is a
that.
bit of an outlier to me in my mind.
Is there a walk-in cooler
The
now
offering.
currently?
We have a walk-in cooler, but it's too old that we need to replace it, and that to replace it is going to cost me $30,000 to $40,000. Plus, I don't have any storage room at all.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons that I want to expand it. So at least I have some storage room to store some, inventory and stuff.
Right. Is the new cooler that you're looking at larger than the old cooler?
It's almost the doors are much larger than what they had previously. I don't know the square foot, but it will be larger than this one.
So I have concerns with that. I think if the cooler's going away because it's aged, maybe we look at still selling, still selling the same type of merchandise, but maybe trying to minimize the new addition footprint by offering cooled beverages in a different format. That's my feeling.
So Patrick, I just wanted to clarify one point that you made for Harry's. This is almost, Harry's was expanding his gas station with bays, I think, but we get a lot of complaints when he expands his retail. But it's very, very different from Harry's because Harry's is an R1 zone and it's a pre-existing non-conforming use. So anytime the town sees an expansion of a pre-existing non-conforming use in a residential zone, it's very, very carefully looked at and treaded upon because, you're in use variance territory and it's really, really hard. And that's why we look at the percentage and that's why he's been denied multiple times. And that's why, the building inspectors even count the coolers because expansions of pre-existing non-conforming use are really problematic, can be. Especially in a place that's extremely residential and identifies itself as residential and doesn't want to see an expansion of commercial in their neighborhood. But this is a neighborhood commercial zone, so it's a completely different comparison.
I do understand those points, Laura, and thank you for reminding me that Harry's Mobile is located in a different zone, but we also just don't engage in spot zoning, and as a pre-existing non-conforming use, you'll always sort of face those tougher constraints, but the type of use is the same. And the argument could be made conversely that Harry's meets a need with his convenience store items because there is not a wealth of options to grab and go those convenience items within a certain radius of his outlet. Whereas this mart has several competitors for the same goods that it sells within walking distance.
Well, I just want to be very careful going down that road because a gas station and a retail convenience store are an allowable use, and the square footages of the allowable uses aren't set in a CN zone. So they're not asking for anything over and above what the code allows, but we do look and review it under site plan. So I just would be very careful making that comparison. And also if it was a restaurant and a restaurant was going next to another restaurant and we were like, well, this restaurant sells food, why do you need to sell food? I just want to be a little careful with that argument because it is an allowable use. It's quite different than looking at, and just as a point, the existing cooler that's in there is 10 by 12 and he's not proposing to expand the cooler. So
he just said the cooler's getting bigger.
Well, that was going to be my comment. The drawing needs to be updated because the pre says 10 by 22 existing cooler, and then the new floor plan shows the existing 10 by 22 cooler. So you might want to, if that's not the case, if it's not both 10 by 22, please update the submittal to show what.
We will,
make sure.
we will update the size of it.
Okay.
Laura,
Because
respectfully, I understand there's not the same hurdle to clear in terms of an expansion of a use, but the fact remains that it is an expansion of the use. And as such, I believe we are charged with evaluating the need and comporting, whether or not that comports with the comprehensive plan for this area of town. And personally, I would just like to know, I would like to better understand what need this expansion of the convenience store use is meeting.
Need is not part of the requirement.
It's not, and if it would be helpful, I can certainly put together something for the packet for the next meeting to kind of set forth what it is that the board can consider with respect to an application such as this.
Right, and along with the review on whether it's a special permitted use, and if it was approved as a gas station, but we need to go through the process to update the site so that it is considered a convenience store with gas, right? We just want to do it right, So I can understand your concerns, Mr. McPartlin. But my view is that the applicant obviously has a right to make application. It seems like it's increasing storage quite a bit from looking at the sketch also. It's an opportunity to clean the site up, and also, satisfy the business need, assuming there is a need. It seems like, you wouldn't be investing if you didn't feel that you need to increase the number of convenience items that you offer, or items in the cooler if it's larger, once you update your drawing and show us what you got, okay? And we'll take it from there. How about other concerns, comments for the applicant?
Is there going to be any modification or expansion of the hours that you're open?
No, it'll be the same.
Can I just say also that I'm looking at Google Earth picture of your property, and if you could give us some other opportunities in terms of, there's a lot of access to that. And I wonder do we really need 2 access points off of Union Street? It looks like your curb cuts are pretty big. And I just think that there's just so much going on there.
Right. I mean, what I showed right now with the existing curb cuts, there's already the discussion of removing.
Yeah, that was Mr. McPartland's comment already, was
along Van
to
Antwerp.
evaluate the number of entrances,
Right.
ingress and
So-
egress to the site.
Before
So
we
I mean,
go
I
down-
can definitely remove that one. If that is, I can, I mean, that,
Just some options to
Well,
look at.
I can.
Yeah, I don't want to give you direction
I
and
can
tell you
discuss
which
that
one to
with the
remove.
owner.
I'd like you to, take a look at it, because you have deliveries that you need to satisfy.
Yeah.
And if there's one that seems like it would work from your perspective, make a recommendation to us. Right.
Laura, can maybe you have the fire department weigh in on that? Because I think that might be, we've been speaking about that intersection a lot in the Police and Public Safety Committee. So I think that might be something that the police and fire department should weigh in on before
Yep.
there's any
So
approvals.
that, so they would
discussion
make
on
a
that.
recommendation, and part of our process is always police and fire to look at, especially with, the deliveries in that intersection. So we'll have that for sure. Thank you.
Would that be done like in the next week?
Well, once we have, if you have a recommendation on closing off a potential ingress egress point, then we'd have that information to be able to share with the
Okay, so we have to provide the plan.
yeah,
first.
we would need to have something to look at.
Okay.
Well, I can speak with the police and fire and relay their concerns to you while you're looking at which entrances to close off.
I guess-
That we would,
Yeah.
that we would
I
appreciate.
guess my thoughts were preliminarily, just
Okay.
just because if there's something, if they say like absolutely not and here's why, then
Okay.
it kind
No,
of
that's good.
versus them
Yeah.
putting work into it and then.
That's what, that would be best. So we
That's
can,
more than reasonable.
we can get their opinions as soon as possible.
And I always urge caution when trying to delete accesses, ingresses, and egresses to gas stations or any place that sells gas, because the way the bays for gas fill-ups are constructed sometimes impedes some vehicles from getting in and out, and it's nice to have options. I know I argued very strenuously for one over here at Knott Street in Walltown and not to close it off too much, because it will make it more difficult for people to get out of the site when they're done with their business. And you have to keep that in mind. It's not the same as other types of businesses. It really does make it more difficult.
Yep.
People pull in at different points to fill up, and
Oh, and the delivery
Stick
truck is
out
there. I
further
mean, that's going to
one
be a
way or the
limiter,
other.
right?
I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Again, at that corner, it's just sometimes it's a little bit of a nightmare getting in and out. And if you've got 4 different access points, now you've got 4 other people maybe trying to exit. Do you know what I'm saying? I think it would be great to see the different options that we could look at. I don't think there's any one given answer. I think maybe we could-
Yeah, that's understandable. I will discuss that with the owner and see what works for him delivery wise, and we can definitely update the plans for that.
The reality is that pretty much the whole length of Van Antwerp acts as an ingress and egress, because you can get in
Yes.
pretty much anywhere along that edge.
As of now, and
Yeah.
that can be a challenge with traffic, yes.
But again, I know we talked about the parking, but if you do choose to close an entrance, somewhere's around the corner, don't arbitrarily just plot parking in there if it doesn't make sense.
Okay.
Because I live in this neighborhood and I drive it every day. As you take that right going up Van Antwerp, if there's a car on that corner, it is very difficult to see around it. So I would say, and we have other convenience stores where we've, encouraged them not to put parking on the street side at a corner.
Okay.
Yep.
So that the visual obstruction isn't there.
All right.
But again, if your magic number is 10 and it looks like you could easily fit 9 in, maybe some reconfiguration gets you to 10, then, I think you're good. But it seems like a very, very mild lift if it's only one parking space that we have to consider.
Right. And if you're close enough, because we don't want to cause a problem, then we'll make a decision as board, right?
All right.
And the donation bin, I know that's on a corner that's visible. If that was to be relocated and that would free up another spot in the back, or maybe that could be pushed to the back corner. People know where those donation bins are. And as you know, sometimes that donation bin is receiving a lot more donations than can fit in the bin. So, getting that off the corner might also be an attribute if you could get it on the rear of the property or somewhere where it's maybe visible from the bank side. That to me, I think would be a big aesthetic win, along with everything else that you're doing. And it may help you with your parking along the back end.
What's your projected increase in customer traffic with this increase in square footage?
I don't know. We didn't even count that way. I didn't even think about that way.
It's going to be, we're going to be providing, increased amount of different types of food,
Yeah,
what foods.
Inside, we're gonna do something, but I never think about like customer-wise, how much more customers I'm gonna get and all that. It's just easy for us to work inside with my employees and everything. It's really hard right now. I'm sure somebody went in. It's very small. Even the counter, I cannot turn my back, and because the counter is too small. It's very tough, very, very.
No, I understand where you're coming from, but I mean, it's a real, to the point that everybody's made so far, right? This is a busy intersection.
Correct.
It's a complicated intersection because of, Palmer Ave and the corner where, where something is going to go in there where Key Bank used to be. So I'm just coming at it from the perspective of, it might be good to get some understanding of just how much the use is going to increase with the increased square footage, right? It's probably in the handbook somewhere.
Well, the numbers are, like, for parking are based on the,
Square footage.
just the square footage, but as far as if there's any manuals, was it Institute of Highway and Traffic Engineers for convenience stores, that, are the numbers based on square footage for chip generation? I guess that's the question. We have a feel for, 2 more racks, is it a 50% increase in the amount of space you have for dry goods versus what you have now, that kind of thing, and does that have an impact with traffic?
I think there is, from an engineering perspective, there should be some information that you can glean.
Okay, I can definitely look into that.
Institute of Highway and Traffic Engineers Handbook seems to be the reference for, just a lookup, and see if.
So it's just, in summary, it's some indication of what the trip increase is going to be, or might be.
Also, if they
Just to follow up on the internal town research that'll be performed on the code compliance, I think we need to get a clear opinion on whether this is being classified as a gas service station or a convenience store or both. And additionally, what aspects of the existing use are outside of compliance, and then are we looking at any variances such as the floor ratio, floor area ratio. I believe there's only a certain percentage of your total lot size that can be devoted to convenience store use in the CN district. Additionally, there is a requirement for a percentage of your lot size to be landscaped in the town of Niskuna.
Yeah, we'll look into all of that, Patrick, for sure.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, no, good comments, Mr. Partland. This is a fairly new application. I know, looks like there's lots of questions. So we'll have the planning department and the legal, of course, answer the questions that are appropriate. And What I heard is that we requested some changes, already, basically identify more parking, improve the handicap space where it should be, bollards and location of the propane storage. Questions Mr. McPartland and others had regarding, lot size, percent change, make sure we're all within code, for the addition being appropriate. And then the preliminary police and fire review, give you some feedback regarding any thoughts they may have that might minimize any traffic concerns based on possibly closing or changing points of egress. All right? Yep, trip generation, clothing bin relocation. Those kinds of questions. So we'll get there. I think, in general, we've seen this before. We'll work through it with some additional information from both you and the staff. Okay.
All right. I have a quick question for the applicant. Is the intent to break ground on this project this year or in the spring of next year?
This year, we're trying.
I just was listening to you about the counter, and you're not showing the counter situation changing in your interior floor plan. So if that's really an issue, maybe look at that as well. Like,
Sure.
If you're going to spend all the money, and right now they can't move inside the counter, but the counter is going to stay the same.
Yeah. Yeah, look at the submittal, make sure you get what you want and get it down on paper, and we'll continue the review process. We'll need a project lead for this one for sure, get somebody over there and take a look and be the point person. So think about it. And we have a couple of members absent tonight, but we'll get somebody assigned to be a liaison to get over there and help out.
Would that be assigned, within the next few days?
We'll try. Well, we'll get an email out and unless we'll give a couple days to hear back from the board members, let them.
Right, but in absence of that, I mean, you're still working with the plan.
Yeah, you're still working with the plan, yeah.
That doesn't hold up anything.
Doesn't hold up anything.
Okay.
Yep. It's just a point person to, spend a little higher percentage of their time with this
course.
project to get over there and take a look.
Of course.
But I'll be over. I'll stop in and get a lottery ticket. The winning one, of course.
Yeah, but if you win, you're not coming back.
If I win it, I need a new. I will not be the project lead, that's for sure. All right. Any questions from you or concerns or?
I thank you for all your input.
Yeah.
I definitely, I appreciate all your input.
Yeah. It's a kickoff tonight, right? So there's the kinds of questions we always have, and
Yes.
we'll work through them all. And I appreciate everybody, the comments tonight from everyone. All right?
All right, thank you. guys.
All right.
you.
No, thank you. All right.
We had landscaping.
Yeah, let's see, do I have landscaping? Yeah, I always try to keep a list and I help out, Mr.
A couple times.
I always try to help out Mr. Henry when he summarizes, make sure if we missed anything. Not that I don't miss anything, but I try. Okay. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
And as we're just transitioning, Laura, no information about the fast food plan for the former event?
No, those guys have not resubmitted anything or come back.
All right.
And we double checked. They didn't submit anything to the city of Schenectady either.
That's another project.
So do we come back, do we have, are we going to be on the next meeting? then?
You can, if you have something new for us and you're ready.
Okay.
We can put you on the agenda, even if it's on update and some feedback of what the, plan.
Once you assign somebody, then we'll,
No, you don't have to wait for assignment. We'll talk to the planning office, Mr. Henry or Ms. Robertson, and we'll get you on the agenda with or without another project
Okay.
lead, okay?
all right.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, and the next meeting is July 25th.
Right. That's the reason why I want to make sure if we want to, we will work diligently to do that.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, we have one other discussion item for tonight, and thanks for your patience, gentlemen. That's Empire Drive sketch plan application for a minor 2-lot subdivision. And the 2 separate lots, each lot, one lot being 1.83 acres, the other being 2 acres. And this is also a new project, and again, thanks for hanging out with us tonight. And I appreciate you introduce yourselves and give us a kickoff. That would be great.
My name is Robert Drallman, live at 630 Leishico Road. And this is Frank Palumbo from CT Mail Associates. I'd like to take a piece of property that is adjacent to my property That's sandwiched between Empire
Could you come up
Drive.
to the microphone a little bit closer, make sure we get you on, you're
That
on
is
recording and
sandwiched
everything.
between Empire Drive and the town of Colony land and divided into 2 building lots. And it does require a front yard width change in order to facilitate that. So we brought some drawings of what we're proposing. And I've had a couple of meetings with the building department and again with the planning department. I've tried to reach engineering, however, he's out on personal leave to bring more things in line. And Frank's going to present what we have, and we're going to address some of the slight changes that would be on that map.
Okay, and that slight changes over what was in our packet?
What's in your packet? Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so why don't you bring us up to speed?
Laura, you were about to say something. Do you want to?
Oh, it doesn't need an area variance. I know I said that to you, but in a very similar subdivision to this, I think Elena and I did a lot of research and the frontage is measured at the setback.
Okay.
So we're good.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, the plan is essentially what's on there. Some of the differences that Mr. Drellman was just talking about. We had extended, for instance, what you would see on your plans from the manhole into the site. We went with another manhole to service the sanitary for the 2 lots. What was discussed after the submission was the idea that we would not extend the manhole line because that would have to go into an easement and be part of a dedicated easement to the town, and the town wasn't as interested in that. So that we could just service it with 2 laterals from the 2 lots to the manhole, which is existing. Also with the water line, and all of this is one of the reasons that we want to continue our dialogue with the engineering department, is because right now we're showing the locations of these as they were on the design plans from Empire Drive. We're looking to get record information for both the water and sewer, so we know exactly what is in the ground and what is not, and we will hopefully have that for you for the next meeting. One of the things I think that Mr. Drellman has talked with planning about was also the idea of where the water line is coming in, possibly getting a hydrant proposing a hydrant at the location at the end of the stub before going into the lots, and then servicing off of the line from there, which would also give it a little bit added safety with the additional fire hydrant, because I guess they're further down on Empire Drive. Again, all of which record drawings will help us in terms of establishing that. If it is not your usual character of what you would see, one of the things that Mr. Drellman had reached out early with the highway department, and those 2 areas right as you come into the site, I think their term was a snow dump. A snow, wasn't a bulb or something they were thinking, or something, but a place where they could come in and at least get the snow off without going to the full extent of a T or a cul-de-sac, which the town was not interested in doing that type of additional pavement, additional dedication of roadway. So that was one of the recommendations. The specific design, we're going to continue to work with the highway department because it was sort of a sketch and an agreement at that point. So
Yeah.
we knew we would be talking with the board as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is sketch plan, so this is opportunity for this board,
To say what you like.
Yeah,
you
I
know.
mean, obviously we cherish the highway department and everyone, but it's an opportunity to get it the way, at least get you on the right foot.
I was only going from this,
Yeah.
that's the generation of it.
Yep, no, thank you.
And we are looking for your comments.
Have you been in front of us before, Mr. Colombo? It's been a while, I
It's
think.
been a while.
Yeah,
It's
I
been a
recognize
while.
your name. It's been a while.
I won't go back to when I first came to this board because that was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was probably a good project, I'm sure. Yeah. So yeah, I took a look at the application, of course, and I had some questions and just some thoughts, and I'll kick it off if the board doesn't mind. But one of the things is, for the submittal itself, it'd be great to show the building envelope, no matter what configuration we end on there, because that gives us an idea of the potential location of the building, right? Because you can build anywhere within the building envelope, and those aren't shown on the site.
Right,
So
we had labeled it in the text, but not on the
Correct.
plan.
So let's put that on there, because there are a couple existing homes on the Stub Street there, which have a side load garage. Well, they have their point of entrance to their garages are from the Stub Road.
Right.
So, it could make a difference of how, sooner or later we'll go to a public hearing, right, Laura, for,
You have to.
for a minor subdivision. And so there might be some concerns from the residents. So that's good information to have, how you position the homes. This is just a sketch. Technically, within that building envelope, these homes could be moved further apart if they wanted a longer driveway, et cetera, that kind of thing. So let's show that. When I saw this, the first thing, and I talked to Laura a little bit today, just what you were saying about the snow pushing. But when I first looked at it, before I spoke to Laura, I was like, well, they're going to come down with the snowplow on the stub, and what they're going to go on to that. I call it a hammerhead, but they're going to be plowing private property, because they're not going to go in there if they're going to have their plow down. So they're going to be plowing private property in order to back up and to turn around. That didn't seem like it made sense to me. They're going to pick up the plow at the end of the stub and drive. And if you haven't plowed the driveway yet, there could be 2 feet of snow there. And it just didn't seem to make sense to me.
And I think what we were probably going to consider when we furthered it with the highway department was the idea of whether or not there was an easement agreement for that. But I think their intent was the ability to come in when they just had sketched on something that was like a little bulbous at the end there. And so that they would come in
just
and be
swing
able
around.
to
Yeah.
push it off and have the ability to turn the vehicle and get back out. So all of that, we knew that this was what we were showing, and it was so the generation of it from a idea to showing something that the board could comment on, and then the highway department could also follow up on. So hopefully we'll be able to,
Yeah,
find
that
a
was
way
my
to
concern,
put that
is
right on.
how do you do that? Because, and then, looking at, this is sketch, right? So that's the whole point of this, is the driveways are about 50 foot long, the way it's shown here. And that's why I'm interested in what the building envelope is. So I parked next to a nice Ford F-250 heavy duty the other day, which is probably about 21, 22 foot long, right? So if you got two trucks or whatever in your driveway, you're backing out of that driveway, you're basically backing into the neighbor's driveway to turn around.
Right. And we can work further with the, more specific type of building and how it would be placed.
And driveway.
And show the driveway. We wanted to show, somewhat to give it the clearest picture of, that size of a building. The 60
I
by
gotcha.
40 is what the footprint would be, but we can look at that.
Yeah, but with the sketches is what we got to work with, right? When I look at that, I think, hey, it's great if they both get along, right? Because it's shared driveway, right, after the stub road, and you're going to be backing up into each other's driveways to get out the way it's shown on the sketch, right? And I had some concern with that. And then that led me to the thought, I don't know, you may have talked to the highway superintendent, but what if, there was like a bulb, or maybe it doesn't follow the town requirements for a cul-de-sac right at the end of the stub there, and then you had, wish I could draw it, but if you have the bulb right at the end of the stub, or like a cul-de-sac, maybe not to the same size or standards, then you could come off with your driveways, independent of each other, and each person would have their own driveway. The only thing would be shared would be that bulb, and then
So if I am interpreting, who's no, that's all right. So Mr. Chairman, make sure I'm understanding. Are you thinking that the bulb would be more centralized and the driveways would?
Yeah, and then the driveways could come off, and if the building owner, right, whoever the proposed person or that would buy the lot want to build within the building envelope, they might want a longer driveway,
So we're starting to understand, the role of the bulb would actually be just for turnaround and stuff.
Exactly, and to connect the driveways, but they'd have more flexibility in the driveways.
I mean, they'd be clearly marked individual driveways, not shared.
Exactly.
And the bulb.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
The
there's,
shared driveway thing is not very appealing.
No.
And the cul-de-sac is not appealing either.
Well,
So I think a bulb.
I want to ask about that next, because
Okay.
the cul-de-sac, if you were to have a cul-de-sac right at the end of the stub road, right? I'm not sure what the dimensions or requirements of a cul-de-sac are, but if it was right at the end, what if the cul-de-sac was, turned over to town, that road, only that portion only, and then you could come off with your driveways, however long or whatever orientation you want. It might be for, a better looking site,
We're trying to avoid a cul-de-sac
because,
because of the expense of that and the size of it. When I measured different cul-de-sacs in the town, the blacktop alone is a 120-foot radius, and 120-foot diameter. So that, and the lot is only 210 feet from the point of Empire Drive to the town of Colony. So you're impacting almost the footprint of both the houses there.
right, but my vision though would be that you'd have it and the houses would be further out into the building envelope. Or,
We can show an example of what each would look like. All right, so I mean, it's easy enough. What we can do is, and I think where you were saying possibly even smaller than what the town standard is. And I think not just the cost of the pavement and everything else, but we're using a lot of land and clearing a lot of land that we may have otherwise not needed to. But what we could do is we could show you, here's what the full size cul-de-sac is. Here's what maybe an adaptation of that would be. And then sort of inching backwards in terms of what is the most practical for the site. Now, Mr. Drallman also doesn't have a specific building and a buyer of the lot. So we want to try to keep in mind some flexibility there.
Right.
But I think I understand what you're saying, and we'll move towards that.
Yeah, and I think that gives you more flexibility because, again, the driveway, now you can position it on the outside diameter, right, somewhere. And they don't have to be symmetrical like it's shown here,
And you don't have to have the sea of pavement on the cul-de-sac either. Like I'm thinking of Heartland, for example, it's a big, large grass area in the center. So the cul-de-sac only empties out with the driveways, but then the snow can be put into that center in the winter months. But in the summer, it's grass, like it's not a bunch of pavement.
We customarily plow in a counterclockwise rotation, and the snow goes to the right, not to the center.
Right, and this, I mean, the snowbanks, I mean, it's right down the street from the one on Heartland, and that's where it ends up dumping into the center.
It's a fairly quick exercise for us to, not go into great detail with it, but at least show 1, 2, 3, a couple of different options. And then when we come back with the board, it's at least express that. We'll speak from the standpoint of what we think is best for the lot development, and you can obviously.
No, that sounds good. And that helps too, because again, we're going to have to go to a public hearing, right? So if I don't have these questions or the board doesn't have these questions, the public's going to have them,
Right.
And we want to minimize, my guess would be that those two homeowners, even though the stub was there, there's always concern, right? Somebody, there's nobody behind you now and you're going to have a new neighbor, right? That's what I like about the stub, because that gives fair warning to the homeowners or the potential buyers that, hey, there may be a continuation someday here, and this is what you're proposing, a continuation of it, so.
Right. Right.
So that's the question I had, Laura. What was the plan for that?
Right.
I mean, it looks like it was meant to connect into Colony. Like you can see that it very clearly is close to a subdivision in Colony. I don't know why it never connected into Colony though, but I'm sure that it was stubbed out for future development.
Yeah, I think
in Colony.
might have been just access to this parcel. I think that might have been it, because if you look, there's all homes where it would come out. If it came through, there's nowhere for it to go,
We have a practice, and I think it's pretty much a rule of trying to not
Landlock.
landlock.
You can't landlock.
And I think that was the reason for this.
Okay. Yeah, because your subdivision can't create a landlocked parcel.
Exactly.
As submitted, it's a very odd layout. And typically, we discourage shared driveways because they tend to be very problematic. Neighbors tend not to agree on when it's time to seal, when it's time to repave. They argue over plowing. It tends to be very difficult.
But however, this is going to be, I think a cul-de-sac-ish type variant is probably appropriate here. But we also, comprehensive plan-wise, right, we're not,
Well, but
high enough.
we're not high, but I mean, but again, we always deal with the situation. Every situation
Yeah.
has its own merits, right? I mean, I got to ask the question. It's probably not a popular one, but what if it was a cul-de-sac? I know it's expensive. Is there an opportunity for 3 homes coming off the cul-de-sac, 3 legal lots?
Then I think you need area variances for frontage. It's a very weirdly shaped lot.
Yeah, it's very possible, but that would be up for the applicant to,
I looked into that, and the minimum width of the rear of the lot and stuff
Yeah,
for bad,
yeah, it doesn't work out.
very expensive, putting in a cul-de-sac for $250,000 to service 3 houses. We're looking to get a variance to just have 2 houses on. Now, there are a couple other developments in the town of Niskuna where they did a similar type of thing with a snow plow. The plow off or pits or whatever they want to call them. So I'm going to check with the highway department and see how they've addressed that.
Yep, that's great.
Maybe they just allowed them to plow onto it and that's all
Yeah, and the planning office can also get some information from the highway superintendent, on her own. I know it sounds like you've already spoken to him, but,
Yeah, I think this is nicer. Like, I think in the other developments that are very similar to this, they just push the snow to the side of the road at the end of the stub. Yeah.
So they really didn't address it. They really didn't think about
Right.
or impact of
Right.
2 foot of snow, which
Mr.
not
Jerome,
bad anymore, but
have you
yeah,
actually
3 foot instead, right? Yeah.
have you actually sold these do you have potential people that are interested in putting homes on these properties at this point, or?
I'm entertaining thoughts. I have no exact plans right now. That's
Okay.
why I have to do this before.
Yeah, because there's
Right,
no subdivision
understood.
approval, so there can't,
I just didn't know if you had somebody, if you had some folks in line, or if the
I may
ideas-
build back there for my own personal home.
Yeah.
I have a house that's way too big for me and my wife.
Okay.
I may sell, I
suspect
may,
So the context could be, I think what you're saying, I'm sorry, Laura, is that extend that stub road beyond where he would put 2 independent driveways. The plow just plows it pretty much like they do now, except it's further back.
Yeah, so I mean, just like Vincenzo off the top
Yeah.
of, right? So like what we had on Vincenzo is 2 driveways, but they're not shared. They sort of they split in a Y that hit the end of the subdivision, and inside the public right of way where there's a stub, the highway pushes snow to one side of the stub and the other side of the stub. And on the subdivision drawing, there's just a little circle of where the snow storage is.
Right.
But you have to make sure that it's like not flat, that it would drain properly, like that kind of thing. But there was,
And then the plow would just reverse out of.
yeah, that's what
that
they
stuff,
usually do.
Which is probably what they do right now.
Yes, that is what they do right now. Yeah.
And I thinking towards that public hearing and what I would think that if we can work something out more in line with what the highway department was leading us towards it, I would think that would be more appealing to the adjacent neighbors, because the amount of clearing that's going to be necessary because you then move the buildings back. Everything starts to happen that way. I think that there's going to be less opportunity to not impact those backyards from a standpoint. So we'll show it and you'll get to tell us, what you think, but I think it'll also be meaningful to anyone who would come to a public hearing on it.
All right, how about, anybody else have any thoughts on the board?
I'm looking on Google Maps and it looks like there might be a paper street to the west of this parcel. Did you explore the possibility of accessing one of the 2 proposed lots from the west off of Kelt?
that's an easement off of Lechico Road that goes across my neighbor's property. And you can see there's also wetlands there. So it's access to that property. This property was originally owned by one of 3 brothers that owned this property and the other 2 at 642 Lechico Road. And he sold that to me years ago. So that's the easement to get to that property across the 2 brothers' property. It's not a road. It's only 30 feet wide.
Okay. Yeah, there's a few parcels though. It looks like at some point that lot was subdivided.
I think everything was subdivided at some point in time. But
And there's a
the
street,
parcel
there's a
that I
paper
have
street.
there- Excuse me, my parcel that I own was part of a larger section, yes.
Is that a private road?
It's not even a road. There is no road there. It's an easement and it's wooded.
Any other comments, thoughts?
So, I think maybe just to clarify what Patrick's saying, Robert, on Google, it's showing a road to the boat and RV storage location in the back here.
But at the end of it, it clearly isn't a road.
But yeah, like what, that's like your home's in there somewhere, right? Your home is in there somewhere.
My home is on the parcel that is to the south
Sorry.
of the easement.
Whoa. So I think this is what he's seeing, right? So
Yeah, what is that, Laura? That an easement wouldn't look like that, would it?
well, Google will map weird things. Like the town doesn't recognize that as a road that goes to the boat and RV storage. Like, I don't know.
If you look on the GIS mapper, though, it looks like there's actually a parcel shaped like a road that roughly matches that Google street.
Well, right, and that I think is going to Robert's. There is an
It's a
easement.
flag lot. Is that what it is? It's a flag lot.
Yeah,
for
it
the
kind
boat
of
and RV
is, yeah.
storage? Okay. That's not included in, that's not owned by you or a relative, right? That's not part of any proposed
Yeah, so-
larger project here.
Yeah. Okay.
They access that for a storage repair shop. And there's another house here, there's a house here, and a house here. But this terminates here, and this is wooded.
So,
Or it's my property.
yeah, so with Google, if there's a business there, they might automatically plot a road to it,
Right.
as part of, their software,
And I do think that what we do know is that Niskiuna did approve the Empire Drive subdivision with the access to the property. Again, what Bob and I were just talking about was Arbor Estates Section 3 over in Colony was done before Empire Drive. So I think there's at least some indication of intent that access to this land was considered at that
That's
time.
my understanding, yes. Yeah,
So,
that's why the stub road was put there.
right.
There's also another T up on Gala, which is the other part that Barbera developed.
So how we end up with access to how many lots, what type, is still for us to work out. But I do think that leads to the idea that that's where it was supposed to be.
I agree. That's my understanding. Yeah. No, so I think the application personally, just speak for myself, it makes sense. Just the details, shared driveway concerns, plowing concerns, access, by the town employees, showing the building setbacks. So there's flexibility and, the actual homes that are chosen to be built and how long they have their driveways, Because, technically, even what you have shown here, either of those homes could probably go back further if they want to have a longer driveway, right? If they want to sit back, isolated in the middle of their lot, and there's nothing wrong with that. And that could, that'd be a cost, of course, by whoever builds the home, but it may also minimize the impact on the neighbors, because again, those, it doesn't show, this view doesn't show where those two homes are, but if you go in the packet, Laura, there's the other picture that shows the two existing homes that are have their driveways off that stub somewhere in this package here. Right here.
And we can also further the discussion as we.
Yeah.
Sorry.
This one.
Yeah, here it is. Yep. It's toward the end of the document,
Yeah,
Laura.
I got it. I think clerk made.
In fact, it's the last page. Yeah. Here it is. So you can kind of see the two homes right,
Mhm.
there, and they're both their driveways. I guess that's be side load garages.
Yeah, so many places want to do the side load
Yep.
garages. That doesn't surprise me.
Yep. So you got side
I'm
load.
actually glad to see that it's done that way and it's in. We had situations where you had the stub and the driveways went out there and just extended the driveway all the way out to the road. And then when the next development came in, those people were like, no, we don't want those.
Yeah, and they don't own the property, but then somebody's going to put the road in, right? So yeah, we're trying to, I think we have lessons learned from other developments where we didn't have the stub. Then later on, go to have development, the stub is a good way to, everybody to know what the future holds, you know?
I think that we can work with Bob and have this information that you've discussed so far readily done very quickly, and get it back to Laura. And if we can do it in the time frame necessary to be on the next agenda,
Yep.
we'd appreciate that.
Yeah, that'd be great. July 25th, we'll get you back on and you can, see if there's anything you can,
And certainly if there's anybody else has any other comments, but I think the ones that we've had so far are probably going to cause enough discussion changes that we might make. It'd probably be more applicable to have those conversations after we've at least looked at those or showed those
Okay.
to you.
Yep. Yeah, and then once we get to a point, we'll have to have approval, right, of the sketch and then call for the public hearing. So we have a sketch, now the final design, and then we'll call for the public hearing and we'll listen to what everybody has to say, see if we've missed anything, and then we'll take it from there.
Has there been any interest specifically maybe with lot number 2, which is very long and narrow, from adjacent properties wanting to purchase to extend their property line back?
Typically, I would say that no one approaches until they know somebody's going to actually use that land for something.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've reached out to your neighbors, if you've gone down Empire Drive to say, hey, I'm considering, sometimes an applicant does that in advance just to kind of get feelers out there to see if there's going to be some opposition.
I have not approached any of the neighbors.
Okay. Well, you can always wait for the public hearing, but
Yep.
not sure if, sometimes some owners may be interested to not stop development, but to increase the lot size.
Mhm.
And the opportunity may be there for you to monetarily pick up some money on a very elongated site where maybe it would have to be basically one of the end landholders that would want to extend their property back to the town of Colony.
Right.
Situation of that is you have to sell the end one before you can sell the next one.
Correct.
Before you can sell the next one. You can't sell the one in the middle.
Correct. But if other neighbors were keen on that, or they may come there, they may say, okay, a lot of times when you have a wooded lot that's a nice buffer and then it becomes developed.
And it's not in my backyard attitude.
Exactly. So just, it's completely up to you. It's completely up to your discretion. If you want to approach neighbors on your own, they'll have the opportunity at the public hearing to do that. But, when you have a property and you've been there a long time and there's a large wooded section behind it, and then all of a sudden this comes up, there's a season of construction, some other stuff. And like, Chairman Walsh was saying, the stub road was put in for a reason. So they don't always know that.
Right.
Mr. Palumbo, can I just ask, not to get ahead of things, but on your short EAF number 12, it says there's a portion of the site that's located adjacent to an area designated as sensitive for archaeological sites.
So that is when we do, and I think Laura probably is aware of this. Some of you may have, the EAF mapper, the DEC mapper defines that, fills out the blank for us. Okay. There was no information as to what that sensitivity was. We will follow up through the CRIS system and say, development has happened all around here. Some of those things can be within a quarter mile. We have no indication that this wooded area was a point that there's an old foundation or anything like that. Our field biologists who went out on the site and to look for the wetlands went across the entire property and did not, although his key is to be looking for wetlands, he's also one of our environmental scientists. So he was looking for anything that might stand out to come back and tell us at the office, hey, by the way, did you know there's an old brick foundation or something? So we have to put that, we have no choice. It gets checked off for us. We'll do as much homework as we can on that, but our indication of knowledge of the site, past history of the site, that there's nothing on this property that meets that archaeological significance.
Okay. Thank you.
It's checked off for almost every single application that we have in the town of Niskayuna.
The old, because I said I've been doing this a while, but the old maps, before they had the CRIS system, they were just those quarter-acre circles, and the more dense area you were in, and the older areas, if you were near look, something like Schenectady or something like Albany, those quarter-acre bubbles just filled up everything. And so where the actual things were started spreading into many different areas at quite a distance, really, from anything of significance. They specifically don't say what they are from that point till now, because they don't want people going out and readily saying, oh, look, hey, I can go out and maybe, do some illegal digging and find something there. So they keep it fairly close to the vest.
Okay. Any other questions? Comments? You guys all set for tonight?
Okay.
All right, and again, with project lead, be useful, so think about it, everyone. All right, and anything else, sir?
No.
No?
I'm good.
We're good.
All right, well, thank you.
All right. Hopefully we'll see you in 2 weeks.
All right,
Thank you.
look forward to seeing you. All right, so that brings us to planning department reports or updates.
I don't,
It's been a long night, anything?
yeah, I don't have anything unless you guys had specific project questions. I like to leave it open in case you do.
I think we'll keep moving forward, try to get everybody home, how's that? Getting late. All right, no questions for Laura
Did you have anything, Clark?
or Clark?
No.
No, okay.
No, I don't.
We'll just go to commission business. Mr. Diapino, anything tonight for us?
Yeah, just a couple things. The Architecture Review Board did have a meeting. We looked at, I think, Kelt's Farms houses, which Joel touched on. We did discuss the gazebo, and then they did take a look at the River's Ledge elevations. A lot of the same information that we've already talked about. Dennis Brennan reached out to me. I've been getting a bevy of emails on Schaefer homes in town. So I would like to start working with him. And also I'm going to talk to Mr. Scrubby Tennis about that. Sort of been a pet project that we tabled prior to COVID. But he has a lot of information, and we're going to try to work with the Kelly Adirondack Center on to start cataloging those. I've had almost half a dozen inquiries in the last 6 months. And is my house a Schaefer home? So I think it's going to be a thing that Dennis can definitely help out with. And I think he's got way more time than I do.
Oh, and one of the things that we wanted to do is when you guys get a complete list, we might be able to put that in our historic preservation code that we just made. Yeah.
So Mr. Brennan's going to be spearheading that. And then the comprehensive plan committee is together.
All right,
That's it.
excellent. Thank you, David. Mr. McPartlin, anything for us tonight?
No, nothing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Khan? All right, Ms. Shenfield
No, nothing for me.
and Ms. Gold?
Just one fast question. Do we have anything that controls those donation boxes that requires the property owner to get them emptied promptly or something? Because it's a problem that's growing.
I mean, I don't know anything off the top of my head, except if you treat them similar to dumpsters, like everything has to be kind of enclosed.
Have you got any complaints
Not that I know of on that site.
or any sites? Have you? for the-
On donation bins, not specifically that I can remember. We get complaints on dumpsters all the time, but I've never gotten a complaint on a donation bin that I can remember.
You almost had one a few months ago.
Really?
I wonder where that would have came from.
I mean, it's possible that I don't remember one as well, but
It might be worth a look to hold the landowner responsible for the cleanup of those if they get out of control. Because they can, I mean, I've been to the.
Or actually the charity that's responsible for it.
Well, there's places, I've seen other ones, not in Niskayuna, where there's piles outside them because people, it's clothing only, and they leave, coffee tables and anything broken they want to get rid of. It's terrible,
We had it been not far from here that was overflowing
Yeah.
and then taking up some adjacent parking.
So I agree. All right, anything else, Ms. Gold?
Nope, that does it. Thank you.
Yeah, and Ms. Strang? Okay, Ms. Strang? No, and I have nothing except for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Move for adjournment by Ms. Gold, have a second by Mr. Khan. Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. It was a good night. A lot of work done tonight. Appreciate it.